What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Kevin with Optimized Essentials, and in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the keys to happiness, all right? To real, true, lasting happiness. Now, am I always happy? No, but I am happy most of the time, all right? On the emotional vibration, the emotional guidance scale, I am often experiencing nowadays, right, recently, a lot more joy, peace, equilibrium, equanimity, love, right? My baseline of emotions have changed and it's increased. And I'm going to be sharing with you what I've done and all the things that I've learned that will help tie together the art and the science of achieving real happiness, because I personally believe that there is a way to happiness, similar to how I shared with you guys recently in terms of the 6 health principles, the 6 foundational health principles, the essential must-dos, must-haves when it comes down to achieving optimum health. Those 6 health principles, when you get them correct, right, that becomes the net result when doing those correctly, when optimizing each and one of those fields, it becomes optimum health, right? So the concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you, which are many, right? I have many models to draw upon so that it's not just me pulling shit out of my ass, right? It's proven. I wouldn't call them scientific models, but they're models developed in psychology. They're models developed by very reputable sources, people who have attained very high levels of humanness, that have shared and distilled the knowledge, the principles, the core principles of mankind so that we can achieve a fulfilling life, okay? So it's an art because everyone expresses and experiences it in a different way. And it's a science because there is a chemical makeup that you can measure, right? And I would even argue that these models that I'm about to share with you are scientific because you can measure it, right? You can repeat it in someone's life by identifying the different factors that go into the constituents of the happy-making chemicals or the concepts that I'm about to share, right? So to begin this whole topic, which I will assure you is a very long, extensive topic, so I encourage you to watch all the way into the end. It's going to be a very long video. I might run out of gas halfway through or lose my train of thought every now and then, but I will do my best to keep you entertained and engaged and here, because this is my passion and vocation, and I am committed to delivering to you the most accurate, potent, powerful, concise, and just good knowledge, okay? So to really begin this conversation, we first have to identify and understand what happiness means, because happiness can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Depending on who you ask, depending on their life experience, happiness can be associated with that feel-good, pleasure, dopamine full of rush or chemical rushed dopamine, serotonin, endorphins sensation, all right? So I decided to look up the definition of happiness, right? And the first thing that I received when looking it up on Google was the state of being happy. Happiness means the state of being happy. So not too helpful, right? So the next thing I did was I looked up the definition of happy, and you get feeling or showing pleasure or contentment, right? And as we all know, pleasure and happiness, the type of happiness that we associate pleasure to is quickly fleeting, meaning it's very temporarily. It fleets. It comes in for a few minutes and then it goes away. It's really heavily dependent upon certain factors, certain situations, and certain conditions in our life that will allow us to feel that way. Now, this might just contradict what I said about that there is a way to happiness, which I still believe. There is a way to happiness, similar to when you want to achieve optimum health, you need to be following the 6 health principles, which if you haven't watched it already, I encourage you to watch the whole series. It's this, right? drinking enough water, properly hydrating yourself. Just drinking tap water alone or just drinking filtered water alone, that's not going to do it. You have to optimize that, all right? You have to optimize hydration. Number 2, healthy eating, nutrition. You have to have the proper micronutrients on board. So if you're just eating turkey sandwiches, that's not optimization. That's not achieving optimum health. That's healthy potentially, but you're missing a lot of key nutrients. So you got to make sure you're doing that correctly. Sleep. You need to make sure you're optimizing your sleep. Movement. You need to make sure you're moving correctly, because if you're doing things with bad form, that's not correct. And then number 5, thoughts. How do you use your mind? How do you use your brain? How do you use the most powerful device? Right? How do you use this? That needs to be optimized. And then finally, number 6, breathing. You need to be able to breathe properly, because air, oxygen, O2 is essential. So these 6 health principles, I would even call them laws, right? But six health principles, you need to have all 6 of these. The constituents of optimum health are these 6. And within these 6 categories, you need to optimize each one. And I'm about to share with you in this video, or in these concepts, there are principles, there are keys, right? There are certain concepts, certain ideas, certain things you need to do and experience and have in order for you to feel happiness. And you can will yourself to be happy, or if you're an enlightened guru or someone who can just be happy, right? They say happiness isn't the way. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. There is truth, but there's also a lot of flaws in that. And I'll explain to you why. Because there are conditions that need to be met, but there are different conditions that will produce different types of happiness. Meaning if the happiness that you are experiencing day to day, or you're wanting to experience, is tied to low levels of happiness, as in the small, right? The suboptimal conditions, meaning there are things that you do that will give you lower levels. There's different ranges of happiness, right? There's different ranges of happiness. And I know this is a lot of information, but I'll get to this, right? What do I mean by this? Meaning there's the happiness where someone gives you a compliment, you feel a good sense of pleasure, but it lasts for maybe 1 or 2 minutes. There's that happiness or pleasure that's associated with receiving good news, eating that pizza, eating that cookie, right? That is a form of happiness, so to say. So my definition of happiness isn't exactly any one of these, but my definition of happiness, to approach this correctly, is the absence of negative emotions, all right? So if you look at the emotional vibrational scale, again, which I will put up, the upward spiral includes everything, let's actually talk about everything below, okay? The negative emotions. So there's pessimism, frustration, irritation, impatience, doubt, worry, anger, rage, jealousy, insecurity, powerlessness, hatred, guilt. And then on the Power versus Force by David Hawkins, it's everything that is, fear and below, okay? Fear, grief, apathy, guilt, shame. Basically, the way I like to approach happiness is the absence of negative emotions. So everything above boredom for the emotional guidance scale, which is positivity, contentment, belief, hopefulness, optimism, happiness, enthusiasm, eagerness, passion, love, empowerment, freedom, joy. So anything that you experience that has a sense of wonder, of awe, tranquility, peace, joy, love, admiration, respect, all of these emotions that are positive, that don't have a sense of pain and constricting, right? I believe it was contracted state. Any type of emotion that causes you to contract and tighten and be stressed, I will consider that negative emotion. So there's negative emotion, neutral, and then everything above that. That is my definition of happiness. Any emotion that is that and beyond. And then the higher levels of emotion, right? The higher levels of emotion that one will experience is that sense of peace and awe and wonder and tranquility and just equilibrium, where it's not essentially good and bad. It's just, there's just a sense of an air of stillness, peace, joy, right? That's what I consider happiness, okay? And then how do we obtain this type of happiness, this absence of happiness? Well, this is where the science, first let's go into the science comes in, all right? So people like the science nowadays, right? They want to understand what is the science behind this, but I'll explain to you, right, the things that you can measure, and I'll explain to you the art, how to obtain the science, which I believe is just as powerful, okay? So there's 4 main chemicals when it comes down to happiness. Serotonin, right? It's mainly manufactured by the brain and the gut, which we've learned recently that serotonin, a lot of it is pumped by your gut, right? So if your microbiome is off, if you have a very inflamed gut, or you have a lot of issues with your gut, you will have a serotonin deficiency, right? And when you have serotonin deficiency, you might have a lot of imbalances in your mood. You might have a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of stress, etc., so on and so forth. And there is also dopamine, right? Basically, it's the pleasure/reward chemical, and it's activated first by the expectation of something, right? If you are expecting to do X to get result Y, meaning if I work hard on my exam, I'll expect a good grade, or the anticipation of being with someone, seeing this to come to fruition, the expectation, the anticipation, the yearning of achieving a certain goal, I call it, will produce dopamine 1, right? Number 1, dopamine A. And then the actual achieving and experiencing of that achievement or that pleasure or whatever it is that you obtain is dopamine 2 or dopamine B. So I personally believe there's 2 different types of dopamine that gets released before and after when we achieve. Supposedly, most of the dopamine gets triggered or released in the beginning, number 1, where we actively yearn for and anticipate something, okay? And then there's endorphins, another feel-good chemical that has a calming effect, and this is released during exercise, during smiling, right? Cheese. And then there's oxytocin, which is the love chemical that basically happens during pair bonding, during sex, during mom giving birth to baby so that she can bond with the baby. So these 4 chemicals is the science of happiness, right? It's what you can measure. It's what you can kind of put down and put on the charts, number it out. But how do you influence your serotonin? How do you influence your dopamine? How do you influence your endorphins and your oxytocin? Well, this is where the art comes in, all right? And there's one more thing I wanted to mention about serotonin. Serotonin, the precursor has been shown, right? The precursor for serotonin, the actually happy chemical that allows you to feel good, the precursor is tryptophan, which is an essential amino acid, right? And this basically means if you aren't getting enough nutrients, which I'll describe later, your serotonin production is going to be hampered. Or if you're not getting enough sleep, your dopamine and your serotonin, your endorphins, that manufacturing process is going to be hampered. So there is going to be a definite science, a definite application that you must understand in order for you to experience real happiness. But again, the different activities that you engage in, the different things that you expose yourself to, the different stimuluses will give a different effect, a different level of happiness. And we all want a level of happiness that lasts, or that has a longer half-life, that has a longer duration. And I personally believe the concepts that I'm going to be sharing with you today are going to share with you, or are going to paint that picture. They're going to give you the framework of happiness, which is very, very, very important, okay? So I want you to think about this. When it comes down to happiness, what do you think needs to happen in order for you to experience happiness in your life, in the past? What needs to happen, what has happened, and what needs to happen in order for you to truly feel happy? I want you to just take a quick moment to think about this, okay? Reflect back on your life, a time when you actually felt happy, and what was the conditions? What was the prerequisites? What were the things that actually occurred when you felt happy? Now, I don't know about you, but for me, The times when I felt most happy was when I was engaged in my passion, when I was having good family, right? When I didn't have family problems, when everything with my family was going good, meaning I felt love, right? I felt connected. I had a lot of friends. I had a good social life. Everything was just working, right? So the key here, the question I asked, the key word here is need, right? What needs to happen? And for you, you might have described a different situation. This is where the art form comes in. But I'm going to share with you the very first concept when it comes down to happiness. And it is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, all right? I'll put a picture up. But basically, in order for you to feel happy, your needs need to be met, right? Just think about achieving optimum health, the 6 health principles. Those need to be fulfilled and optimized in order for you to have true optimum health. If you get any one of those wrong, you are not going to experience optimum health, and thus, true health, highest levels of health, is not possible. So if you miss any one of these needs for Maslow's hierarchy of needs, true happiness, lasting happiness, high levels of happiness is not possible, okay? So if you haven't been exposed to this, I'm going to quickly go over it because there's a ton of information, there's a ton of concepts, a ton of models that I'm going to be painting and showing you so that you have a better understanding, a better perspective on happiness, so that you can create the conditions that has happiness as a byproduct, rather than I'm just going to feel as if I'm happy, or law of attraction happiness into my life. No, it's a condition. Happiness is a byproduct of what you are doing, how you are behaving, the life that you've created, the environment that you are in, the conditions that you've created, okay? So with that being said, let's start with the very first basic layer of Maslow's hierarchy of needs to self-actualize, which, is the ultimate form of happiness, in my opinion, and that is the physiological needs, all right? Breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, excretion. So basically all your physiological functions are working properly, in my opinion, optimized, okay? That's how you cement the first layer of happiness. Because if you're not breathing properly, as I mentioned in the 6 health principles, you are going to be anxious, you're going to be stressed, you're going to be, constantly tight and contracted. If you're not getting enough food, you're not going to be you're malnourished. You can't physiologically be balanced, right? If you're not getting enough water, same thing applies. If you're not having enough sex, same thing applies. If you're not getting enough sleep, same things apply. So you're not in homeostasis. And if you're having excretion problems, you're not shitting properly, you're not peeing properly, that is going to mess with your mood. So the physiological section is the most basic foundation. You're trying to meet your needs to survive, to just be alive. If you are not meeting your basic need to be alive, that's going to be your very most consumed state. How can I survive in this world? And then once you have that, the next level up is safety, right? You need to make sure, so this says security of body, employment, resources, morality, the health, the family, health, property. You need to have a roof over your head. You need to have a job. You need to have a sense of security. And that can mean just knowing where you are, that your environment is safe. You're not living in the ghetto. You're not living in places that cause you to constantly think about, oh, I'm worried that I might get robbed. I'm worried that I might get mugged. I might get shot up and stuff like that. So that is safety. You need to have your physiological needs met, and then you need to be safe in that environment, okay? And then the third thing, you need to love and belonging. You need to have connection. You need to have friends, deep connection with your friends, real relationships, not fake acquaintances, people who just, you converse with and then that's gone. No, you need to have deep connections with real friends, have deep connection with your family. So if you have family problems, you can see how that will hinder your mental emotional state. And then sexual intimacy, having a deep connection with your partner, with your spouse, or someone who you deeply admire and can balance you out. And then after that, we talk about the esteem needs. Basically, now you're more, with all that being met, now you're more able to start working on yourself, right? This is like the midway point. self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect from others, respect by others. So right now, I'm developing my self-esteem by making these videos. I'm developing my need for significance, for not congruence, but for the commendment that I will get for helping someone. So that will improve my confidence. And through my achievement, I'll earn the respect of others, and I will gain the respect of my peers, etc. Right? So that is the esteem needs, okay? And then after that, you have the self-actualization, because as you become more confident, you become more posed in your achievements and grounded in who you are, you begin to self-actualize because you have all your needs being met. And for this is where he talks about morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, discovery, acceptance of facts, contribution. And this could be described as being in flow, being in state, living in harmony with nature, living in the Tao, and having the highest expression, right? And then finally, which is the pinnacle, which is supposedly an add-on as he evolved through self-actualization, is self-transcendence. That's where you blossom into the lotus flower and you become super enlightened and you achieve the truth of the world, right? You're more connected with spirit. Your consciousness is of the highest level. Your being is imbued with unconditional love. And that is the pinnacle, right? The God essence. It's what we came from. So we were born into this, and then we go back into that, right? And honestly, for me, that's a bit conceptual. I do get glimpses of it every now and then, but it's a life journey. So I'm sharing with you the pyramid, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once you have this solidify, right, meeting these 6 things, in my opinion, happiness, joy, enlightenment, a sense of awe and wonder and deep admiration and respect for love and being in touch with God and connected to God is just a natural byproduct, because you simply can't experience that if you're on the street homeless and shooting up, or you're constantly stressed out about how can I meet my most basic needs. It simply can't happen, right? But any one of these can happen simultaneously at once. It's not prerequisites of each other, but most often they will follow that category, okay? So that's the first concept. That's the first model I'm going to be sharing with you. And then number 2, which is also another concept, and that is Tony Robbins' 6 human needs, right? Another idea of needs. Why is this so important? I think Tony Robbins kind of sort of modeled this from Abraham Maslow, but I'm still going to cover this because in order for you to feel content, happy, all of your needs need to be met so that you can meet the needs of other people, okay? And that is where true, real happiness comes in. So if you have not watched Tony Robbins' TED Talk on why we do what we do, or his 6 human needs, I encourage you to watch it, get it from the horse's mouth, because he came up with this supposedly, and he can articulate this a lot better than I can. But I will do my best, again, to keep you entertained and engaged. If you are dozing off, take a deep breath with me, guys. Breathe in the prana, right? The good-ass prana, as Infinite Waters, forgot his name, would say, you know? Breathe in that good-ass prana, baby. So there's Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. Certainty. Assurance you can avoid pain and gain pleasure, safety and security. Uncertainty and variety. Basically, the need for unknown, change, new stimuli, and adventure. Significance. Feeling unique, of value, important, special, or needed. Independence. Connection and love. A strong feeling of closeness or union with someone or something. Growth. You need to be growing. You need to be achieving. You need to be doing your business. You need to be doing your vacation, right? An expansion of capacity, capability or understanding. And then contribution, a sense of service and focus on helping, giving, and supporting of others, okay? So as you can see, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I will show you right here, is quite similar to Tony Robbins' six human needs, right? Certainty and uncertainty. Basically, you need to be certain of where you're going to be sleeping tonight, knowing how much money you're going to have, knowing that you can survive in the future, etc., etc. So meeting these needs, having these needs met is a prerequisite and also the cause of certain levels of happiness. Depending on how optimized your physiological needs, your safety needs, your love and belonging, your esteem needs, your self-actualization, depending on how optimized each one of those are, is going to dictate the levels of happiness that you experience. Does that make sense? Okay, and then the third concept and model that I want to share. Ikigai, the Japanese secret to living a longer, more fulfilling life, okay? There is four main things, all right? Number one, that which you love. Number two, that which the world needs. Number three, that which you can be paid for. And then number four, that which you are good at, okay? So the overlap between that which you love and that which the world needs make up your mission. And that which the world needs and that which you can be paid for makes up your vocation. And that which you can be paid for and that which you are good at makes up your profession. And finally, that which you are good at and that which you love makes up your passion, okay? So the idea behind Ikigai is discovering, number one, what you love, right? Discovering what you enjoy in this life. And that often comes from what you are good at, all right? A lot of people say passion, don't follow your passion, right? Yes and no, because sometimes your passion will not coincide with that what the world needs, or it may not be something you are good at. But chances are, if you love something and you are passionate about it, eventually you'll be good at it, okay? But hey, not always the case. Someone might love playing basketball, but they'll never be that person, or they'll never be an NBA player. So it's about discovering what you are naturally inclined to do. What are you interested in? What do you find yourself not having to have to discipline yourself to do? Like for me, I love to learn, right? I just love learning new ideas, new concepts. And most importantly, I love teaching, right? I'll give you an example. If I love learning, right? If I love learning and I'm good at it, but I can't be paid for it because I don't like research, right? I don't like research. As in, like, if that was my job to learn and research, I wouldn't enjoy that. I mean, and technically I am doing this. I'm researching, right? And I'm technically eventually going to be paid for it because I'm speaking. But I enjoy the process of teaching more. So teaching is my Ikigai. It's something I love, and depending on what I teach, it's what the world needs. In today's society, I'm teaching health and wellness, how to optimize your posture, how to optimize your mind, your body, so that you can experience higher and higher levels of emotion. So it is what the world needs, because most of the world nowadays is living at a lower level of consciousness, living at a lower vibrational scale. And by me teaching the world how to achieve higher levels of consciousness, how to achieve higher levels of emotion, it is what the world needs. So all of this is my Ikigai. But for you, in order for you to feel like you are significant, to feel like you are being loved, to feel like you are growing and contributing to society, you need to develop and find your Ikigai. And that starts with understanding either what you are good at, and finding something you love, and also figuring out if it's something the world needs or can use, and then figuring out how you can be paid for. Once you have those locked in, you have found your Ikigai. And this is a lifelong process, okay? So that is, let me see, 1, 2, 3, third model. Now, even more, guys, here's where it gets a little bit kind of more artsy, okay? The next model I want to share with you is going to be the flow state, okay? Flow state is where you can find that deep sense of peace, of aliveness, of engagement, of being purely absorbed in the act, right? Where the ancient Chinese Lao Tzu, right? His wisdom is Wu Wei, the art of doing nothing. Or I believe the chapter, the saying was, the sage, right, does nothing, but everything is achieved or everything is done. So it's a paradox of getting everything done by doing absolutely nothing. What does that even mean? It means you're being in flow. It's the art of non-action. Action by non-acting. How's that possible? How can I do something without actually doing it? The idea behind Wu Wei, the idea behind flow state is you are so absorbed, like me right now, I'm so absorbed in this action that I am not technically acting, which is hard to wrap your head around. But it's just flowing through me. I don't have to actively try. I'm doing everything by not doing, you know? Right? Like, nature doesn't have to try. Nature doesn't have to try to grow a tree. No, you plant the tree in the garden, and under the right circumstances, it naturally grows. It just flows. That is the art of Wu Wei. That is the art of doing nothing and achieving everything at the same time. So flow state is achieved when challenge meets skill. Meaning, I would not be in flow if this was the first time I made a video and I had a very challenging time or a very difficult time speaking in front of a camera, which I've had. In the beginning, when I started doing this, I was so shy and nervous that I couldn't speak. My voice was contracted, low levels of emotion, and I had very difficulty. If you watch back, I privated those videos, but I'll upload them. What's up, guys? My name is Kevin, and I decided that I'm gonna start making YouTube videos one day because my skill level wasn't there yet. So the challenge was extreme, and as you can see, flow state is anxiety, as in it's above that. If it's too challenging, you'll get anxious, and if it's too easy, you'll be bored, right? As in, if I went and spoke in front of a crowd now, because I haven't developed the skills of public speaking yet, even if I can speak in front of a camera, maybe I cannot articulate and express myself the same way as if I were to speak in front of a large audience. So I would experience a lot of public speaking anxiety. But if I do that enough and I'm engaging enough, I'll eventually be back into flow. So flow state is where you can achieve another version of happiness, right? Again, it's not just tied with pleasure. Remember my definition of happiness? Happiness is the absence of negative emotions. And when you're in a flow, you are not experiencing negative emotions, okay? All right. And then the fifth concept I'm going to be sharing with you today is consciousness work, all right? Self-awareness and transcendence. This is where I think and believe that the idea of happiness, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. This is where I believe it comes from, because the New Age spirituality, which I'm not hating on, because there's a lot of New Age concepts that I agree with, but a lot of New Age beliefs is that you just zen out and be happy. And you can. During consciousness work, meaning meditation or being in flow, being super aware of your environment, deeply imbued in the present moment, Eckhart Tolle stuff, the power now, you can achieve high levels of presence, of equanimity and tranquility. That's why it's called consciousness work, right? Being so deeply absorbed and present to the moment in everything that you do, by deeply feeling and being deeply aware or meditating to develop your awareness. This is the highest, supposedly the highest levels of happiness, because the essence of who we are is not the mind, not the body, but consciousness itself. We are the observers of the observed. We are two different things. You are the awareness that is having the experience and not the experience itself. So that's how we do not get tied up and identified with our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, our behaviors, who we think we believe, our body. So the consciousness work is simply being in touch with the highest truth, the ultimate truth of existence, and that we are simply consciousness, so to say. We are spiritual beings living inside of a physical body, or we're spiritual beings having a human experience. That is the idea behind this new age thinking. And when people say happiness, there's no way to happiness, but happiness is the way, I think it's flawed, because let's say you meditate, you have an extremely deep present emotion. Can you achieve that type of emotion, that type of presence and awareness and deep connection, if you do not have the rest of your needs met? Meaning you do not have your physiological needs met, right? You're not breathing correctly, you're not eating enough food, you're malnourished, you're not drinking enough water, you're not getting sleep. Even Buddha himself found that he almost died by sitting 40 days under the tree. Or even the ascetics, right? The monks who have extreme cutting of the senses and meditating days on days upon days and drinking minimal water, they develop extreme back pain and they have a bunch of aches and pains in their body, and they simply are denying their body. Can you really achieve the highest levels of emotions, of oneness with God, if you are denying the lower levels, right? They say, as above, so below, right? So if you don't have the below, you don't have the body, you don't have the physical mapped out or optimized, how can you optimize the higher, the more esoteric spiritual realms? I don't think you can, truthfully, right? I've only experienced higher and higher levels of emotions because I've gotten down the bottom basics, the bottom of the needs, the most essential needs. Once I got that down, I started to experience the higher levels of emotion, right? It's basic stuff, guys. Okay, and then finally, with all that being shared, there's also one thing that I really want to touch on, and that is trauma work, okay? Which hasn't been touched on the needs. Trauma work, developmental trauma, which I believe, who's the psychologist that was interviewed? Gabor Mate, right? Developmental trauma. Developmental trauma is like a tree that has been growing malfunctionally, right? So maybe someone poured chemicals into the tree and the tree became all deformed and dysfunction and stuff like that, and it grew all lopsided and stuff, and it's not able to be the full tree that it needs to be because it's been traumatized in the past. So I believe to fully be here and experience the high levels of emotions, you need to heal your trauma. You need to work past your developmental trauma. You need to be aware, consciousness work of the unconscious, of what's been buried in your subconscious mind, what you have not seen in the cave, the dark cave, right? The cave you fear most enter holds the treasure you seek. So when you haven't worked through your trauma, when you haven't worked through what's causing you to behave in certain ways, causing you to have addictions, causing you to have problems, when you don't work those out, you cannot achieve. Your happiness is limited because there's always going to be that thing lingering in the background, that demon, that dark force that you have not addressed. So, guys, those were the 5, 6, maybe even 7 concepts that I shared with you today in achieving happiness. The keys to achieving happiness, the art and science of happiness, how to truly be happy. Now, are you going to be happy all of the time? No, because look, there are 5, right? Or 6 of you believe in the transcendence, okay? There are 6 needs, human needs, even Tony Robbins. There are 6 human needs. And all of our needs cannot always be met, right? And with the health principles, all 6 of them. So maybe sometimes we don't get enough sleep. Maybe sometimes we don't get enough good food. Maybe sometimes we make a decision that negatively impacts one of those needs, one of those health principles, and as a result, we can't be happy. So the condition of happiness, yes, is dependent upon how well are you living these principles? How well are you enacting these principles? How well are you incorporating them into your life? By sharing these principles with you, Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, Tony Robbins' 6 Human Needs, Ikigai, flow state, consciousness work, trauma work, I am bringing awareness and bringing the mental constructs. I'm creating the framework that you need to have so that you can experience higher and higher levels of happiness, higher and higher levels of emotions, higher and higher levels of consciousness, so that you can truly be happy and be peaceful and be at ease, because that's what we all want, right? Now, with all that being said, guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Stay subscribed if you haven't. Hit the notification so that you get a notification when I upload a new video, and then share it with someone else who you think needs to learn this so that they can become more happy. So with all that being said, I'm out. See you guys in the next one. Peace.